white vinegar. You probably have a bottle sitting in your kitchen cabinet right now, completely forgotten, quietly collecting dust next to your soy sauce and sesame oil. But here is the truth the Chinese home cooks have known for generations and that most Americans are completely sleeping on. This humble, cheap, almost invisible liquid is one of the most powerful cooking tools you will ever own. Today, we are counting down 31 clever white vinegar cooking hacks that the Chinese have been using forever, and by the end of this video, you are going to look at that dusty bottle in a completely different way. We have also got a bonus hack at the very end that honestly might be the most mind-blowing one of all, so stick around because you do not want to miss it. Let us get started. Number 31. Make your scrambled eggs incredibly fluffy. Chinese people figured out centuries ago that a tiny splash of white vinegar added to eggs before scrambling creates a noticeably lighter, fluffier texture. Add just half a teaspoon of white vinegar to every 3 eggs before you whisk them. The vinegar reacts with the proteins in the egg whites, causing them to relax and stretch more easily when they hit heat. The result is eggs that puff up slightly and hold on to more air, giving you that soft, cloud-like texture that feels like something from a high-end brunch restaurant. You will not taste the vinegar at all. It simply disappears during cooking, but leaves behind dramatically better eggs. Number 30. Rescue oversalted soup or stew instantly. This one will save dinner more than once. If you have oversalted a pot of soup, broth, or stew, add 1 to 2 teaspoons of white vinegar and stir it in. The acidity works as a flavor counterbalancer, essentially making your taste buds perceive less saltiness by introducing another competing flavor dimension. Chinese cooks understand that flavor is about balance, not just individual ingredients, and acidity is one of the most powerful tools for restoring that balance. Taste after stirring and add more vinegar in small increments if needed. You may also add a small raw potato cut in half. Let it simmer for 10 minutes and remove it as it absorbs excess salt while the vinegar rounds out the overall flavor. Number 29. Keep your sliced apples and avocados from turning brown. If you have ever cut an apple or sliced an avocado for a fruit salad or snack plate and watched it turn that ugly brownish gray within minutes, Chinese home cooks have a simple solution. Fill a bowl with cold water, add 1 tablespoon of white vinegar, and submerge your freshly cut fruit immediately. The light acidic environment created by the vinegar slows down the oxidation process that causes browning. The acid essentially interrupts the enzymatic reaction happening on the exposed flesh of the fruit. Leave the slices in there for about 30 seconds, remove them, and pat them dry. Your apples will stay crisp and white for hours. This is especially useful when you are prepping fruit for a party platter or packing lunch for kids. Number 28. Keep your rice from sticking together. When you are boiling rice, add just half a teaspoon of white vinegar to the cooking water before you put the lid on. The acetic acid in the vinegar interacts with the starch molecules in the rice, reducing their tendency to bond together and create that gummy, clumpy texture. The rice comes out fluffy and separated every single time. You will not taste the vinegar at all. The Chinese have been doing this for generations, and it works whether you are making jasmine rice, long grain, or even short grain sticky rice when you want a slightly less sticky result. Number 27. Tenderize tough cuts of meat without a marinade. Chinese cooking frequently uses lean, tougher cuts of meat cooked at high heat, which requires clever tenderizing techniques. Mix 1 tablespoon of white vinegar into your marinade, or simply rub it directly onto the surface of tougher meats like pork shoulder, beef chuck, or chicken thighs before cooking. White vinegar contains acetic acid, which begins breaking down the tough muscle fibers and connective tissue on the surface of the meat. Allow the vinegar to sit on the meat for at least 20 minutes before cooking. The result is noticeably more tender meat without any sour taste because the acetic acid breaks down and largely evaporates during cooking. This is particularly effective for stir-fry cuts that need to be sliced thin and cooked fast. Number 26. Prevent pasta and noodles from clumping together. Add 1 tablespoon of white vinegar to your pasta or noodle boiling water along with your salt. The vinegar helps adjust the surface pH of the noodles slightly, which reduces the stickiness of the starch on the outside of each noodle. Chinese cooks use this specifically with fresh noodles and rice noodles that have a tendency to stick together aggressively after draining. After draining, toss your noodles immediately, and the combination of the vinegar treatment plus quick tossing means they stay beautifully separated. This works for American pasta too, whether it is spaghetti, fettuccine, or penne. Number 25. Create a perfectly crispy fish skin every time. One of the most impressive techniques from Chinese seafood cooking involves patting fish skin dry and then brushing a very thin layer of white vinegar directly onto the skin side before pan frying. The vinegar causes the proteins in the skin to slightly contract and tighten, and it also reduces surface moisture. When the skin hits a hot oiled pan, it crisps up dramatically faster and more evenly than it would otherwise. You get that restaurant-quality crackling skin without having to score it with a knife. Use salmon, sea bass, snapper, or any skin-on fillet for best results. Number 24. Make homemade mayonnaise that actually holds together. When Chinese home cooks make their own mayonnaise from scratch, which they absolutely do, they use white vinegar as the acid component rather than lemon juice. Here is why this matters. White vinegar has a neutral flavor profile compared to lemon juice, which can overpower delicate dishes. Add 1 tablespoon of white vinegar to your egg yolk and mustard mixture before you begin slowly drizzling in the oil. The acidity helps the emulsification process work more reliably, meaning the sauce comes together smoothly and stays together even after refrigeration. You get a stable, creamy, tangy mayonnaise that works beautifully in coleslaw, egg salad, and sandwich spreads. Number 23. Revive wilted vegetables in minutes. Chinese people waste very little in the kitchen, and one of their most practical tricks involves saving wilted vegetables. Fill a large bowl with cold water, add 2 tablespoons of white vinegar, and submerge your limp lettuce, wilted spinach, or soft carrots for 10 to 15 minutes. The slightly acidic environment encourages water to move back into the plant cells through osmosis, restoring crispness and firmness. This works especially well on lettuce and leafy greens that look completely beyond saving. After soaking, drain, rinse briefly with plain cold water, and dry in a salad spinner. You will be genuinely shocked at the transformation. Number 22. Make the most tender, fall-apart braised pork belly. Adding 2 tablespoons of white vinegar to the braising liquid for pork belly is a technique used widely across Chinese regional cooking. The acetic acid slowly breaks down the collagen in the fat layers and connective tissue over the long braise, resulting in meat that has a melt-in-your-mouth texture. It also helps render the fat more completely, so you get rich flavor without that greasy heaviness. Add the vinegar along with your soy sauce, sugar, star anise, and cooking wine at the beginning of the braise, and let it work its magic for 2 to 3 hours. The vinegar flavor completely disappears, but the tenderness it creates is unmistakable. Number 21. Keep red cabbage brilliantly purple when you cook it. If you have ever cooked red cabbage and watched it turn a sad purplish gray, you understand the frustration? Chinese cooks who use red cabbage in pickled dishes and stir-fries have long known that adding white vinegar maintains the vibrant color. Add 1 to 2 tablespoons of white vinegar to the cooking water, or directly to the pan when stir-frying red cabbage. The acid stabilizes the anthocyanin pigments responsible for the purple color, preventing them from reacting with natural compounds that cause graying. Your cabbage stays stunning and appetizing throughout cooking and even after refrigerating leftovers. Number 20. Make your fried foods dramatically crispier. This is one of the most widely applicable hacks for Americans who love fried chicken, fried fish, or any battered food. Add 1 to 2 tablespoons of white vinegar to your batter mix before frying. The vinegar reacts with a baking powder or baking soda in the batter, creating additional carbon dioxide bubbles that make the coating lighter and more airy. When it hits the hot oil, this airy batter fries up with a shatteringly crispy texture rather than a dense, doughy coating. Chinese restaurants use vinegar and tempura-style batters for exactly this reason. The result is a coating that stays crispy even as it cools slightly on the plate. Number 19. Intensify the flavor of tomato-based sauces. Whether you are making marinara, shakshuka, or a tomato-based stir-fry sauce, adding just 1 teaspoon of white vinegar at the very end of cooking transforms the depth of flavor dramatically. Chinese cooks understand the principle of wei, which refers to the lingering complexity of flavor. A small amount of acid added at the finish of cooking lifts all the other flavors and makes them more vivid and distinct. The tomato flavor becomes brighter, the sweetness becomes more pronounced, and the savory elements become more defined. This is used in restaurant kitchens around the world, and now you know why your homemade sauce never quite tastes as complex as the restaurant version. Number 18. Use it to make a perfectly smooth, lump-free egg flour soup. When making Chinese egg drop soup, add 1 teaspoon of white vinegar to the broth before you drizzle in the beaten eggs. The acid in the broth helps the egg strands set and firm up instantly as they hit the hot liquid, creating those beautiful, silky, ribbon-like strands that are the signature of a well-made egg drop soup. Without this acidic assistance, the eggs can cook too slowly and either become lumpy or completely dissolve into the broth, rather than forming those gorgeous ribbons. This is a technique used by Chinese home cooks who make this soup daily. Number 17. Create the most flavorful homemade stock or bone broth. Add 2 tablespoons of white vinegar to your cold water before you begin heating your bones for stock or broth. Chinese cooking has a long tradition of making deeply nourishing bone broths, and vinegar is a traditional addition. The acetic acid draws minerals, particularly calcium, magnesium, and phosphorus, out of the bones and into the broth during the long simmering process. You end up with a more minerally rich, deeply flavored broth that gels beautifully when refrigerated, indicating high collagen content. You will not taste any vinegar in the finished stock because it fully evaporates, but your broth will be noticeably more nutritious and flavorful. Number 16. Remove bitterness from bitter melon. Bitter melon is incredibly popular in Chinese cuisine and is gaining popularity across America. After slicing it, toss the pieces with salt and a tablespoon of white vinegar. Let it sit for 10 minutes, then rinse thoroughly. The combination of salt and acid draws out the compounds responsible for the intense bitterness, making it significantly more palatable without destroying the vegetable's nutritional value. Chinese people consider this prep step essential before cooking bitter melon in stir-fries or soups, and it makes the vegetable far more accessible to people who might otherwise find it too intense. Number 15. Prevent potatoes from discoloring after cutting. After peeling and cutting potatoes, place them in a bowl of cold water with 2 tablespoons of white vinegar added. The acid prevents the enzymatic browning that causes potatoes to turn gray and unappetizing after exposure to air. Chinese cooks who prepare potato stir-fry dishes, which are genuinely delicious and wildly underappreciated in the West, use this technique constantly. The vinegar water bath also removes excess surface starch, which gives you crispier roasted or fried potatoes. Soak for up to 30 minutes, rinse well, and then cook as usual. Number 14. Make dumplings and wontons with dough that is easier to fold and more tender. Chinese people take their dumpling dough extremely seriously. Adding 1 teaspoon of white vinegar to the dough mixture when making wonton wrappers or dumpling skins creates a slightly more elastic, workable dough. The acidity relaxes the gluten network just enough so the dough does not spring back aggressively when you roll it thin. This means you can achieve those paper-thin, translucent wrappers that superior dumplings are known for without fighting the dough constantly. Knead as normal, add the vinegar with your water, and notice immediately how much more cooperative the dough becomes. Number 13. Achieve ultra-crispy roast chicken or duck skin without drying it overnight. Chinese roasted meats, particularly Peking duck, are legendary for their crackling, paper-thin skin. While traditional methods involve overnight drying, You can shortcut this by brushing the outside of your whole chicken or chicken pieces with diluted white vinegar, 1 part vinegar to 2 parts water, and then air drying it uncovered in the refrigerator for just 2 to 4 hours. The vinegar pulls surface moisture out of the skin and slightly tightens the proteins, setting you up for dramatically crispier results in the oven. Roast at high heat, around 425 degrees Fahrenheit, and the skin will blister and crisp beautifully. Number 12. Make light, fluffy, airy steamed buns or bread. Chinese steamed buns, called mantuo, have a specific soft, pillowy texture that is difficult to achieve without knowing a few tricks. Adding half a teaspoon of white vinegar to your yeast dough neutralizes some of the natural alkalinity in the flour and improves yeast activity, resulting in a more even, active rise. The texture becomes notably softer and more pillowy when steamed. For Americans who bake bread in the oven, you can achieve a similar effect. The vinegar also extends the shelf life of your baked goods slightly by creating a mildly acidic environment that slows mold growth. Number 11. Make your own buttermilk instantly. If a recipe calls for buttermilk and you do not have any, add 1 tablespoon of white vinegar to 1 cup of regular milk. Stir it and let it sit for 5 minutes. The acid curdles the milk slightly, mimicking the tangy, thick consistency of real buttermilk. Use this substitute in pancakes, biscuits, cakes, or any baked good that calls for buttermilk. This is a reliable scientific substitution that works perfectly every time because you are essentially recreating the acidity profile that makes buttermilk unique. Number 10. Make the most incredible homemade pickled vegetables in under an hour. Chinese quick pickles are a staple side dish and flavor enhancer. Combine half a cup of white vinegar, half a cup of water, 2 tablespoons of sugar, and 1 teaspoon of salt in a jar. Add your sliced vegetables, whether it is cucumber, daikon radish, carrots, red onion, or jalapenos. Shake to combine and refrigerate for 30 minutes to 1 hour. The vegetable cells absorb the brine rapidly, taking on bright, tangy flavor while retaining crunch. These pickles work as a side dish, as a topping for tacos and burgers, or as a palate cleanser between rich dishes, which is exactly how Chinese people use them at the dinner table. Number 9. Tenderize tofu so it absorbs marinades like a sponge. Chinese people cook more tofu than perhaps any other culture on earth, and they know tricks about tofu that most Americans have never encountered. After pressing your tofu to remove excess water, soak it in a mixture of 1 cup of water and 2 tablespoons of white vinegar for 15 minutes before marinating. The vinegar slightly opens up the protein structure of the tofu, creating more pathways for marinade to penetrate deeper into the block rather than just coating the surface. After the vinegar soak, rinse lightly and proceed with your marinade. The result is tofu that is packed with flavor throughout rather than bland in the middle. Number 8. Remove the fishy smell from seafood. This is huge, especially if you cook a lot of seafood. Soak your fish, shrimp, or shellfish in a mixture of cold water and 2 tablespoons of white vinegar for about 10 minutes before cooking. The vinegar neutralizes the trimethylamine compounds that are responsible for that strong fishy odor. Chinese people are enormous seafood consumers, and this pre-cooking soak is a standard practice in Chinese home kitchens from coastal regions all the way to inland cities. After soaking, rinse thoroughly with cold water and proceed with your recipe. Your kitchen will smell dramatically better while you cook. Number 7. Make the glossiest, most beautiful stir-fry sauce. A small splash of white vinegar, just half a teaspoon, added to a stir-fry sauce just before serving creates a brighter, more vibrant sauce with a stunning sheen. The acid interacts with the sugars and starches in the sauce, improving the way it coats ingredients and enhances its glossy appearance under light. Chinese chefs in high-end Cantonese restaurants add acid at the finish of cooking specifically to create that lacquered, jewel-like appearance that makes stir-fried dishes look so visually stunning. It also brightens all the aromatics you cooked with, making ginger, garlic, and scallion flavors pop more intensely. Number 6. Prevent cream sauces and custards from curdling. This is an incredibly useful technique for cooks who want to incorporate Chinese dessert techniques like egg custard tarts or silken tofu preparations. When making any cream sauce or egg custard that will be gently heated, adding a few drops of white vinegar to the mixture before cooking stabilizes the proteins and raises their coagulation threshold slightly. This means the proteins can withstand more heat before they begin curdling or separating. You get silkier, smoother finished custards and cream sauces without the risk of that grainy, broken texture that ruins an otherwise perfect dish. Number 5. Make the crunchiest, most satisfying stir-fried vegetables that never go soggy. Before stir-frying vegetables like broccoli, bok choy, snow peas, or bell peppers, blanch them briefly in boiling water with 1 tablespoon of white vinegar added. The acidity helps preserve the cell wall structure of the vegetables by preventing the pectin from breaking down too quickly under heat. After blanching for 60 to 90 seconds, transfer immediately to an ice bath. When you stir-fry these pre-treated vegetables, they hold their structure and crunch beautifully throughout the high-heat cooking process. This is why vegetables at good Chinese restaurants always have that satisfying, crisp, tender bite rather than turning mushy in the wok. Number 4. Create the silkiest, smoothest scrambled eggs in the Chinese style. This goes beyond hack number 31 because it is specifically about replicating the Chinese restaurant technique for scrambled eggs with tomatoes, a dish called fankie chow dan that is beloved across China. Beat your eggs with half a teaspoon of white vinegar and a tiny pinch of salt before cooking. Heat your wok until smoking, add oil, and pour in the eggs. Do not stir immediately. Let them set around the edges, then use a spatula to push large, soft folds. The vinegar has already worked on the protein bonds, and the result is enormous, custardy, barely set folds of egg that are genuinely unlike anything you have had from a Western cooking technique. Add your cooked tomatoes at the very end. Number 3. Make homemade chili oil that is infinitely more complex and flavorful. Chinese chili oil is one of the most beloved condiments in the world, and adding 1 teaspoon of white vinegar to your finished chili oil while it is still warm creates a complexity that most homemade versions lack. The acid interacts with the toasted chili flakes, Sichuan peppercorns, and aromatics to create new flavor compounds that deepen the overall profile. The vinegar also helps the oil stay fresher longer by creating a slightly more acidic environment that slows oxidation. Stir it in immediately after the hot oil has bloomed all the spices before the oil cools. The vinegar integrates completely, and what you get is a condiment with layers of heat, numbing sensation, and bright complexity. Number 2. Make the most tender, perfectly textured restaurant-style dumpling filling. This is how Chinese people get that incredibly juicy, tender dumpling filling that practically squirts broth when you bite into it. When mixing your pork, cabbage, ginger, and aromatics together, add 1 teaspoon of white vinegar along with your soy sauce, sesame oil, and other seasonings. The acid begins a light protein breakdown in the ground pork, making the meat more tender and helping it retain moisture during steaming or boiling. The vinegar also brightens the ginger and scallion aromatics so they taste fresher and more vibrant inside the dumpling. You will notice the difference in your very first batch compared to dumplings made without this step. And now, number 1, the most clever and impactful white vinegar cooking hack of them all, and the one that Chinese cooks consider the most fundamental. Make tough, old, cheap beans and legumes cook in less than half the usual time while becoming infinitely creamier. Here is the complete technique. Soak your dried beans, whether they are black beans, chickpeas, kidney beans, or lentils, overnight in cold water as you normally would. When you drain and begin cooking them in fresh water, add 2 tablespoons of white vinegar to the cooking liquid. The acetic acid weakens the pectin in the cell walls of the beans, allowing them to soften and cook through much more quickly and evenly. Old beans, which have been sitting in your pantry for more than a year and famously resist softening even after hours of cooking, respond remarkably well to this treatment. You get perfectly creamy, tender beans in significantly less time. And now the bonus hack I promised you. This one is specifically something Chinese people use that almost no one in America knows about. When you are making any kind of congee or rice porridge, add 1 tablespoon of white vinegar to the water at the very beginning of cooking, before the rice even goes in. Then add your rice and cook as normal. What the vinegar does is break down the outer layer of the rice grains slightly during cooking, which causes them to break apart and bloom into that thick, creamy, silky congee texture dramatically faster than normal. A pot of congee that would normally take 90 minutes of constant stirring can be ready in about 40 minutes using this method, and the texture is actually superior, more uniform, and creamier throughout. If you found even 3 or 4 of these useful, share this with someone who cooks, because most people are throwing away money and flavor every single day without knowing it. I will see you in the next one.